And one quick heads up is just email me the link in case we want to use it for outreach, or I don't know. We're going to get Drupal soon, and once we get Drupal, you can always cut the front of this off. Once we get Drupal, I might try to just fold it in there too. Yeah, just send me the link whenever you're done.
Yes, I'll go ahead and do that, Carson.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Then do you think that's everybody? I mean, that's a pretty long list. I mean, we like this. You know, this is Santa Claus.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll go ahead and introduce Carson Williams, who is our financial aid representative, who will go over this presentation today. And so I do want to know that for our FAFSA, for our Financial Aid 101, we're recording this because it's just basic general information. For our estimated budget worksheet tomorrow, we won't be recording that since our students will be going through their own individual worksheets and whatnot. So Carson, thank you so much for joining us and for being here today and presenting. I'll go ahead and pass on the popcorn mic to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Koo. I appreciate it. It's funny. It cracks me up when you say popcorn mic, because when I was in college, I took a music class and everybody said, oh, it looks like a giant popcorn ball, the microphone. Okay, so let me look at the participant list here really quick. Do you want me to close the meeting so we don't get Zoom bombed, or do you want to do that?
I think students are still popping in, Carson.
So it'll keep chiming when we go through the presentation every time they pop in. It'll interrupt the.
Yeah, I think it's just you and I who hear the chiming. The students don't hear it. Unless Christina Tao, do you hear the chiming?
No.
Okay, perfect.
Oh,
yeah,
well, that's perfect then. Well, then don't sweat it, because this is normally a 50-minute presentation. So we still got 6 minutes of time before we start, but I could save that for the end in case you have a good question. You always have good questions, Koo. Even when the students don't ask questions, you seem to ask the right questions for them. So always good job there. All right, you want me to go ahead and get started? I'll go over to PowerPoint here and share screen. And then let me know, because sometimes when you share screen with PowerPoint, it doesn't always work in full screen mode. So I'm using a different computer that's supposed to have all the updates. So let's try this. Now, Koo, can you see the screen, full screen, the PowerPoint?
I cannot.
This is the problem we had recently. Can Christina see the full screen?
No, I do not see the full screen.
Thank you, thank you. Let me just try one more little thing here. I appreciate that. All right, I'm gonna reshare the screen. Sometimes this works. Okay, let me hit F5 again. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can, Carson, yes.
And it's full screen, right? It's not all, sometimes it pops up kind of unusual, but it looks good to you, right?
Yes.
Well, cool. People are still chiming in. We've got 4 minutes. It's usually a 50-minute presentation. But okay, I'll go ahead and start now because you know, it's kind of like cooking popcorn. You know how you're supposed to listen to it until it stops popping so much? Well, it seems like the dings have stopped, so I guess our popcorn's ready. Yay. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad you can join this because you just closed one chapter of your life, high school, and you're starting a new chapter of your life, college. And, you know, time's going to go by pretty fast, but I'm glad you're here. It's students who kind of hang out in their anonymity that have the most issues. So just the fact that you all are here today greatly increases your chance of student success. So I appreciate you all being here because you're our future, right? Someday when I'm all old and crabby, you guys are going to be running things. So I'm glad you're here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over financial aid, the basics, and we're going to talk about award offers, and I'll give you some reminders. Starting with this one. Now that you're an SSU student and you've matriculated, which is just a fancy word for being able to register for classes, all of your future Sonoma State communications are going to go to your SSU email address that you access behind that login firewall where you get to My SSU, Canvas, Zoom, all that good stuff. So a good reminder, you want to periodically check your SSU email because the financial aid office isn't the only office that sends out to-do lists. You could get a to-do list from the health center. You could get a to-do list from records, you know, all sorts of places, right? So now that you've matriculated and you're going to register for classes, we'll talk a little bit more about that soon. Just be mindful to check your SSU email address at least once a week. Now, I don't know the particulars of this, but you could look on the IT's website. Some students have preferred to have all their SSU emails forwarded to a particular address, but you can check with IT on how to set that up. So just a reminder, you want to begin checking your SSU email at least once a week. Now, when you're going to get a to-do list notification, it's going to go to your student center. You're going to see it in your My SSU at your student center under to-do list. And before it gets put on there, you're going to get a communication to go check your to-do list. So a good way to make sure you're on top of your to-do list is to check your email frequently. So 2021, let's get started. So what is financial aid? This is pretty straightforward, but here I want to give you a reminder that you got to reapply for financial aid every year. It's always so sad. Usually at the start of the fall semester, I get a good couple dozen of students who say, I don't understand why my financial aid didn't disperse. And then I look and I can't find a file. And they go, well, I applied for financial aid last year. And I go, oh my goodness, you got to apply for financial aid every year. So here's a pro tip for you all. The FAFSA opens up October 1st of every year. So October 1st, 2020, which is just like a few months away, you're going to do your fall 2021, spring 2022 FAFSA, and that will be based on 2019 income for tax purposes. So here's your pro tip. If you do your renewal FAFSA in October, and then right after you finish doing your renewal FAFSA, turn around and do your general SSU scholarship application, get that done right after, right? Then you've got them both done between midterms and finals. Then you can have finals, go on winter break, and just have a clean mental slate, right? That way you don't forget about it. But remember, you always have till March 2nd to file a FAFSA. But some of the more limited pieces of financial aid from the federal, state, and the institution, meaning CSU Sonoma, are based on a first come, first served basis based on when you initially file your FAFSA. So I always recommend that you file your FAFSA every October for the upcoming year. Now, we all know financial aid is some money for help, right? And there's really just two main types, as you see on the screen. It's gift aid and self-help aid. Gift aid is grants and scholarships. Grants you apply for through either the California Dream App or the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Scholarships you hunt for on an individual case-by-case basis. And then you have self-help aid, loans. If you borrow, it's self-help because you borrow the money, then after you graduate, you pay it back. Work study, you earn the money as you go. So here's an important note I should give you guys a heads up on. Work study is not guaranteed money. That's just the opportunity for you to find a work study job on campus, and then those earnings don't count against you on a future FAFSA. The free application for federal student aid and the California Dream Act are means-tested programs, so they look at your income and assets every year. So obviously, the more money you make, the less they're going to give you free for college because you can afford those expenses yourself. So work study is an opportunity for you to explore the world of work, apply for a job, interview for a job, get some work experience while you're in school. College is a good time to start building that resume. I hope you all partner with career services at some point. But those future earnings don't count against you on a FAFSA. So you'll report your work study earnings. I made $3,000. Then later on the FAFSA, you're going to read the screen and it's going to say how much did you earn in the previous year or in the particular year for work study, and you'll retype in that amount. So 3,000 minus 3,000 equals 0 as a heads up. But again, you got to find a job and, apply for it, get the job, get a monthly paycheck. Pay dates are the 15th of every month. You get paid once a month. You can also find work study jobs through Handshake, but you can look at an individual department or contact them to see if they have any jobs available. But all work study jobs at this time are on campus. So if you're going to get an off-campus job, it won't be work study, just as a heads up. So, and lastly, with work study, if you don't use your work study award by a certain point in the fall semester, we're going to cancel it and re-award it to other students who find and get a work study job. So the best way to make sure you're awarded financial aid every year and get work study in your package is to basically get a work study job when you're a freshman your first year. If you don't get a work study job your first year, it won't be offered to you again, but that doesn't mean you can't have it. You'll just have to come and ask for it about a month into the fall semester. So that's what we're looking at here. Grants, FAFSA, Dream App, scholarships, you go hunt those down. Loans come from the FAFSA or Dream App, and work study comes from the FAFSA. So, and of course, how do you apply? Well, you do the application every year. And I'm so happy you are all here today, simply because It's the people we don't hear from that have the most trouble, right? The ones that forget to reapply every October. That's not going to be any of you. Pretty standard stuff, right? How to apply. Opens up October 1st of every year. You either do the FAFSA if you're a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. If you're working on your eligible non-citizen, but you're not there yet, you'll do the DREAM app. By the way, don't sweat it if you don't get Cal Grants your first year. Every year, the California Student Aid Commission evaluates you anew for Cal Grant. Just make sure you do your FAFSA before March 2nd, but I know you're all going to do it the first week of October and your general SSD scholarship application because you're all here today. And by the way, I want to point something out on that last bullet point. Keep copies of FAFSA tax forms and documents used to complete verification. You should do that every year. You know why? Because you don't know if the FAFSA, or if you're a DREAM app person, if they're going to randomly select you for verification. So, you know, every year when you file your taxes or use other documents for income, mostly this is to parents, but also to students, just keep a copy, put it in a folder called FAFSA. If you're randomly selected for verification and need copies, fine. If not, no big deal, right? You don't want to have to go searching for them because nobody likes to deal with the IRS. You can always get duplicates from the IRS, but just better if you keep copies, in my opinion. Now, whenever you go to college, there's two things going on, right? You have costs, and then you have to have money to pay for those costs. So we all know you applied for financial aid. I recognize most of your names. I know you've all applied for financial aid, which is good. So now how is your financial aid going to cover those costs? And what are those costs, right? Those costs are university charges, and in the CSU system, they call them mandatory registration charges. Really, that's your tuition and fees. Should be $39.48 for most people minus your enrollment reservation deposit. So you're always going to have mandatory registration charges, right? And along with classes comes books and those types of expenses. Then you're going to have housing, whether you live on campus, off campus, or with parents, there's going to be some sort of housing expense. And if you live on campus, you're required to have a meal plan. This is across the entire country. You're not required to have a meal plan if you live off campus or with parents, just as a heads up. But obviously, if you live on campus your first year and have a meal plan, you're going to have a lot more costs on top of your tuition or mandatory registration charges. So then you have also books, transportation, parking permit. You know, Roanoke Park's a very walkable community. Here in Sonoma County, you could ride the bus for free if you have a student ID if you're a college student. You can actually save a ton of cash if you don't bring a car or don't have, you know, you're not paying for parking, you're not paying for insurance, right? But that's up to you. Some people prefer to have a car, some don't. Just a heads up on books. Nothing says you have to get your books from the bookstore. You can find them cheaper on Amazon, probably from the publisher. And don't knock renting textbooks. You do things early enough, you could probably rent the books and save a ton of money there. Now, oops, I forgot deposits. Now, deposits are advance payments, not additional fees. So all of you should have paid an enrollment reservation deposit. So here's a hypothetical example. You know, if you paid a $50 enrollment reservation deposit, your first semester is going to be $50 less because that enrollment reservation deposit, or ERD, gets applied to your first semester charges. So be careful when you make your spring budget for spring 2021. Your financial aid's not going to travel as far because you're not going to have any deposits in spring. So that ERD deposit's only your first semester. Now that housing deposit only gets applied to your first semester housing charges too. So typically your average student's going to find themselves $350 less in financial aid in spring because they didn't have a $50 enrollment reservation deposit and a $300 housing deposit, for example. Now here's what happens. You know, financial aid's got to pay out at some point, right? So that's usually at the start of the semester, and it's typically twice a year, at the beginning of fall and at the beginning of spring. Now, not everybody has their file done, right? Some people go back inadvertently and touch their FAFSA after everything's done and get themselves randomly selected for verification. That happens. If you're already done with your FAFSA and everything's set up, no reason to go back and touch it. But we have tons of people who do. And you'll see that on our website, the Financial Aid Office website, there's a disbursement calendar, and we disperse throughout the semester. And then there's always a drop dead date. I think it's the week of finals. So if for some reason your aid doesn't start at the beginning of, or does not pay out at the beginning of the semester, we do disperse throughout the semester. So I recommend you sign up for direct deposit. Why wait on the mail, right? Here's something for you guys. Let's say your financial aid was greater than all your campus charges, your mandatory registration charges, your on-campus housing charges, and your meal plan. Well, that's going to go to your on-campus address, so we're not too worried about that. But if you live off campus or with your parents, once we put that check into the mail, it's on the post office. And whether or not you kept your address up to date, you're responsible for keeping your address up to date in my SSU. We can't change that for you. So if the check ends up going to an old address, well, that's kind of on you guys, right? I recommend you sign up for direct deposit. You get your money sooner. You might get it the week before school starts, and you're not going to have to worry about it going out through the mail or getting lost in the mail, because it's a huge nosebleed to get a reissued check. It's not impossible, but 2 weeks after the check's gone out, you can always contact Sewell Services to get a reissued check if yours didn't come in the mail. And we already talked about it disperses twice a year, but here's the key part. You see that big old bag of money? Look just down to the lower left bullet point I have there. You will need to budget. So financial aid is going to pay out typically first week of fall, typically the first week of spring, and you got to make that money last until the next disbursement. So for some people, they're not going to get a disbursement. Their charges are going to be greater than their financial aid, and will have to pay instead of get some money left over. But either way you slice the pie, you're going to need to budget. You just got to budget. You know, the semester is 4.5 months. I encourage you to budget for 5 months, right? Instead of 9.5 months for the year or 9 months of the year, you should really budget for 10 to make sure you have all your expenses covered. So that's a key thing that you're going to do with your case advisors. You're going to do the whole budgeting piece. I recommend that you really do your homework there, because if you find out now that you're short money at 2:19 p.m. on, I don't know, Monday, June 29th, and you're $400 short, well, by doing that legwork and creating a budget, you've got time to earn that $400 before the semester starts, right? Or maybe let's say you're $2,000 short. Maybe you figure that out now or this week, and then you can work part-time between now and when that last housing payment's due in November, and then just have the money to pay it off, right? But you're going to need to create a budget to see where you're at. Are you over? Do you have more financial resources to pay for college and your bills? Do you have less financial resources to pay for college and your bills, right? So you'll do that with your advisor, but if you still have questions, you know, don't hesitate to contact somebody. So grants and scholarships. Remember how we mentioned that these were gift aid? Grants are going to come from the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, or state aid grants are going to come from the DREAM app. So if you file a FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, the California Student Aid Commission gets a copy. You're going to be evaluated for federal and state financial aid. If you're only eligible for the DREAM application, you'll only be evaluated for state financial aid. But Pell Grant comes from the FAFSA, FSEOG comes from the FAFSA, California Student Aid Commission, Cal Grant A and B and Middle Class Scholarship, and State University Grant. Those all come from the FAFSA or the DREAM application, state aid, right? EOP is also considered state financial aid, the EOP grant, so that you'll be considered for that whether you're FAFSA or DREAM. Now, university, you got to go find these out on your own typically. It's all about deadlines, right? That's why you want to check the scholarships office website, but we also have a scholarship office. Don't sweat. You really should look for scholarships year round, to be honest with you. Then there's also private, local, and national scholarships. And I want to warn you about scholarships. A lot of students these days don't want to do the reading. It just is, you know, and when you don't do the reading and you pay somebody to do the work for you, that's where you get scammed. The biggest scam out there that hits college students is scholarship scams. And here's how this rolls. Let's say you pay, I don't know, Joe's scholarship service $100 to find you a scholarship. He finds you 2 scholarships for $10, $20. He just took $80 of your dollars, right? So there's no free lunch here, right? You really got to put forth the effort before you can apply the skill. The more scholarships you apply for, the better you get at it, and the more you find out what works for you, right? Same thing with looking for work, whether it's work study, a job during college, or a job after college. You got to put forth that effort before you can apply for the skill. The more you apply for work and look for work, the more you apply for scholarships and look for scholarships, the better you'll get at it. And you'll learn that life skill just by doing. And they're translatable life skills. You know, your scholarship posting is just like a job posting. If the scholarship wants you to talk about your love for horses because it's an equestrian scholarship, you're going to talk about your love for horses. If it's a job posting and it's a work study job and it talks about using a copier, fax, and multi-line phone system, well, in your application materials, you're going to talk about the copier, fax, and multi-line phone system in your application materials. So they're translatable life skills, right? Looking for jobs and looking for scholarships. And it's always good to have a proofreader. I love getting stuff where it says, I'm the best at customer service, but I think the student meant customer service, right? Spell check didn't catch that. So use your writing center. whether it's, well, you're not transitioning out of high school, but you're getting into college, use the Writing Center, right? Or at least get a second set of eyes to proofread that for you, because you always want to put your best foot forward, right? I'm the best person for this scholarship because I love horses, right? And my spelling's good and my writing style's great. And I had the scholarship application proofread by somebody else. Just some pro tips out there, right? But remember, you're not in this alone. Reach out and ask for help, whether it's from CASE, Financial Aid Office, Civil Services, Career Services, the Writing Center. There's all these people here just want to help you succeed. Take advantage of that, right? You're paying for it one way or another, whether it's through financial aid, working, or your parents, or you're putting in the time to do the work, right? Get the most out of it. Take advantage of everything your student ID card has to offer you. So we already talked about work study. It's on campus, flexible hours. Can't go over more than 20 hours in a week. Paychecks once a month on the 15th for hours actually worked. We already talked about this. The benefit is income exclusion on the FAFSA. And you also get professional experience, applying for jobs, looking for jobs, interviewing for jobs, writing cover letters. It's going to help prepare you for the world of work. If you're, let me phrase it this way. It's always sad when I deal with a lot of seniors and super seniors in college, and it's their last semester, it's spring, they're going to graduate, and they're scrambling to find work experience. And I can tell you for a fact, I used to hire people, and if I had somebody who was a 4.0 with no work experience, I probably wouldn't hire them. I'm just going to be honest with you. If I had another candidate who had a 3.2 and an established work history, it's going to come out in the interview, right? I don't want somebody to show up that's just a paper dragon where I've got to teach them how to show up to work, not look at social media, how to dress, you know, how to answer the phone, how to use the copier, fax, or multi-line phone system. No, when I hire somebody, I need somebody to be productive right away, right? So what is Carson trying to tell you? If you're offered work study, take advantage of that, right? Not only so you can keep getting it every year and not so you get the benefit of the income exclusion on the FAFSA, right? But so you could build that resume, right? Your goal is to get a job at some point. Just don't waste that time when you're in college. I know everybody's different, right? Like when I was in college, 20 hours a week kicked my butt. The young lady that sat next to me had a full-time boyfriend and went to one school full-time, went to the JC full-time, had like 3 full-time jobs. Good for her, right? That worked for her. That did not work for me. Me, I had to work about 20 hours a week, right? And I had to plan that, build time management. And that's also a benefit of work study. It's one of those intangible benefits. Students who work part-time, not too much, by the way, but at the right optimal amount, given their individual circumstances and what they can handle, graduate in higher numbers. Why? Because they build time management skills. There's a correlation between working part-time and time management skills, completing your degree, and making that successful transition into the world of work. So again, just think of college as a time to start building your resume to make the next chapter a good chapter, right? We close the chapter of high school. We're opening the chapter of college. Eventually, the chapter of college will close and you'll start the chapter of your professional work experience or work life. Whether you work for yourself, somebody else, start a business, who knows what you're going to decide to do. I know you're all going to go do something fantastic, and you're going to put the word fan back in fantastic. You'll take care of things when I'm old, confident in that. But just a heads up, you might want to start considering these things now. And don't fret if you didn't get work study. We're going to cancel it for people who don't use it. You can always contact the financial aid office about 2 weeks to a month into the semester, and we'll see if there's a way we can get you work study. So don't sweat it. But I encourage you to work, whether it's on campus, off campus, work study or not. Build the life skills of looking for work, applying for work, building time management skills, starting to put things on your resume so you can make that successful transition into the world of work. Now, I'm sure you're all aware of the pandemic that's going on, right? Well, this has nothing to do with the pandemic, the screen that you're looking at. I would say roughly over the last 30 years or so, the federal government and to a lesser extent the state government, for a variety of reasons, have not kept up with the cost of inflation for college. So the sad thing is loans are a part of almost every college student's life these days. It doesn't seem to matter what your socioeconomic background is. I see the data. It seems like almost every student we have takes a loan at some point. Now, I want to caution you though. Somebody put up there on the right hand of the slide, invest in your education. True, there's things called good debt and bad debt. But I want to caution you about this. A lot of students make the mistake of not doing a budget. And when they don't do a budget, they take all the loans that are offered to them every year, even though they don't need all that. So the feds are always going to throw the maximum student and parent loans at you that they can. Doesn't matter if you check that box on the FAFSA, if you're interested in work study or student loans, those are solely for gauging the public's interest in those programs. The feds are always going to give you the maximum in student loans, regardless if you check that box on the FAFSA or what your situation is. I call it the credit trap. A lot of students just take the max. They assume, well, I must need all this because they didn't do a budget. Then they spend that leftover loan money on video games, pizzas, stuff like that. And if you look at a 10-year standard repayment plan, which is 120 months, which is 10 years, that's going to be the most expensive pizza and video games you've ever purchased. If you look at the interest on that for 10 years. So what is Carson trying to convey here? What I'm trying to tell you is it's okay to borrow, but only borrow what you need, right? Don't borrow more than you need. You could reduce your loan. Heck, you could decline your loans. You can ask for them back later on with the form, but we'll get into that later. Now, there's two types of loans. You'll see on this slide, there's subsidized and unsubsidized. In my worldview, given having been a student and working in financial aid, I would just try and stay at the subsidized loan if I could. Why? Because the government pays the interest while you're in school. So you're not going to have as much debt when you exit college. The feds compute student loan interest 4 times a year. That's quarterly, 25%. So if you take out an unsubsidized loan, it's going to compound 4 times a year, right? Each quarter when they apply interest. So you're going to have $2,000, then you might have and your interest is going to be calculated off $2,000 on the unsubsidized loan. Then the next quarter, it might be $2,007 and your interest will be calculated off $2,007. And then that'll add interest, right? No, suddenly you owe $2,014.50. So it becomes compound interest. So, I mean, if you have to take the unsubsidized loan because you're in a pinch, fine. You can repay loans while you're in school, by the way, just as a heads up. Now, I also want to point something else out to you. There's an annual percentage rate every year. So you have to do a FAFSA every year to get a loan. There's an annual percentage rate every year and it changes. The rate was 4.30% last year. You can see they've gone down to 2.75. Now, I was in school for 6 years. I got a degree every 2 years. So my student loans averaged from 2.3 to 8.5%, and they're yearly. So if you take out a subsidized, unsubsidized loan, it's going to be fixed until you pay it off at 2.75%. If you took out a loan in 1920, it was fixed at 4.3%. So it changes every year. But don't worry about it. When you get close to repayment, definitely contact the financial aid office. We can go through some strategies if you need some help with that. But again, the key is to only borrow what you need, right? Don't spend all that unsubsidized loan money on pizza and video games. Shoot, check this out. Well, what if you took the maximum loan money and you ended up getting a refund after school started and it was like $800? Well, and you knew it was, you took out unsubsidized loan money. Well, I would return it to the program. You've got 30 days to return that money. When you get that check or direct deposit, we'll just put it back on the program. After that, you just repay your lender directly. But let's get a little bit more into the subsidized loan. Hopefully you can stay at the subsidized loan. And I want to point out something to you. If you look at the subsidized loan limits on this slide, you're going to see freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. That's all you get anywhere. As a freshman, you can go to Stanford, Harvard, Columbia, Fordham, Florida State, Arizona State, Sonoma State, community college in Alaska, community college in Michigan. A freshman's only going to get $3,500 per year and $1,750 per semester minus the 1% loan fee that the feds take out. Freshmen have the highest national dropout rate, so the feds offer them the least amount of money. Sophomores have the second highest dropout rate. So you notice the feds only offer $4,500 per year, right? $2,250 for fall, $2,250 for spring, minus the loan fee. Then doesn't matter where you go, a junior, senior is going to get $5,500 per year, $2,750 for fall, $2,750 for spring, minus the loan fee, right? Each year, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, you'll get offered $2,000. So I hope this helps crystallize why a budget's important and why you need to not only file the FAFSA every year or the DREAM application, apply for the general SSU scholarship application before the deadline of every year, and plan a budget. If you plan a budget and you're working part-time, building your resume, checking off those boxes, doing your thing, if you planned a budget, not just a 1 semester budget or a year budget, but kind of looked over everything, short-term budget, 1 semester, medium-term budget, 1 year, long-term budget, what's this going to cost me next year? then you're going to find you'll borrow less money, right? You'll be like, oh man, I can do like my 20-hour-a-week work study job. I got 5 hours on the week on the side over at the local hardware store. And you might find that you could reduce your borrowing as time goes on, especially if you could pad that with scholarships on the side too. So don't be afraid to work. Don't be afraid to borrow. But remember, it's all about moderation. You know, if you have questions, ask them. It's the students we don't hear about that have the most trouble, or the students we don't hear from that have the most trouble. We have drop-in advising Monday through Thursday from 10 to 11 a.m. by Zoom because the campus is closed to the public, and then from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. by Zoom. And all you got to do is contact the Seawell Service Center or financial aid office that day, and they'll schedule you a Zoom meeting with the drop-in advisor. So that's Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 10 a.m. to 11, or I'm sorry, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., my bad, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., Monday through Thursday, and then 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. So use the drop-in advisor. If you're unsure about taking out a loan and you want to talk to somebody, call and schedule an appointment. We'll do a Zoom meeting and we could talk about those things. I'm only the Wednesday advisor. So you're going to have a different advisor Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And you can also email these things, if you get to a certain point. But again, I encourage you to ask questions. There are no dumb questions. This is your life. You're opening a very important chapter of your life. And the decisions you make now, today, and tomorrow are going to impact you for the rest of your life, right? So ask questions. I know I'm repeating myself, but the students we don't hear from have the most problems and tend to drop out in higher numbers too. So ask if you have questions about loans. Plus loan, that's offered to your parents, 5.3% fixed. Don't recommend that. Student loans, you don't go into repayment until 6 months after you drop below half-time enrollment, graduate, or leave school. Parent Plus loan repayments begin 60 days after the spring disbursement, just as a heads up. So 60 days after your spring disbursements, remember, financial aid disperses once in fall and once in spring. So 60 days after your spring 2021 disbursement, if your parent took out a Parent Plus loan, they're going to enter repayment. Then there's private alternative educational loans. Here, you're kind of at risk of the private market. I strongly discourage you from private alternative educational loans. There's a lot of predatory lending there. But again, if you need $200, you need $200, right? Don't take out a $2,000 loan if you only need $200. Although I discourage you from a private alternative educational loan, sometimes a person needs to do that. But if you're unsure, contact the financial aid office, talk to somebody first, just don't jump in with both feet until you have all the facts, right? Knowledge is power, knowledge is key. Well, of course, we're all about knowledge, right? You're all here to learn. And, hey, I'm learning too. Things change all the time. We're now living in a pandemic world. So Zoom, if that works for you, Monday through Thursday, call in, get a Zoom scheduled, and ask your questions. By the way, if you need to do it 2 or 3 times, doesn't matter. Like I said, there are no dumb questions. This is your life, right? And if you're unsure, keep asking until you are sure. It might not change some of the facts that you have to borrow, but at least you won't overborrow and create that situation for yourself where you're like, I'm no longer a student, but I still eat ramen and tuna fish and peanut butter and jelly because I borrowed too much in student loans. That's a real thing. And let me tell you, by the time you graduate, you're going to be tired of ramen, tuna fish, peanut butter and jelly. Well, if you're vegetarian, then, you can probably cut out the tuna fish. But other than that, you're going to be very bored of those items. So borrow wisely. So first-time loan borrowers, if you do have to borrow, you're going to have 2 things to do for your subsidized, unsubsidized student loans. Entrance counseling and the master promissory note. These are one-time processes. The promissory note's good for 10 years. That should last you through a PhD. Don't worry if it takes you longer than 10 years to get your PhD. It's not a big deal. You just do another promissory note. Entrance counseling is typically good once, but you might have to do it again if you transfer schools. You might have to just send it to the new school. Sometimes people do that. They'll come to Sonoma State for pre-med, get their pre-med done, then transfer to Stanford or some other place, University of Arizona or some other medical school. And, they'll just have to go back into the entrance counseling and send it to that new school, for example. So you'll have to do entrance counseling and promissory note. And guess what? These are delayed this year due to the pandemic. So in August, you're going to get 2 to-do lists if you've accepted your loans through PeopleSoft or MySSU or your Student Center. You're going to get a to-do list for entrance counseling, and you're going to get a to-do list for the master promissory note. And you'll be directed on where to go to complete those, and you'll need the same FSA ID to complete those online that you used to sign your FAFSA. Now look at that third bullet point down there, plus parent loan. Parent also applies at studentaid.gov. The parent will need their FSA ID that they use to sign your FAFSA, or if you're a different parent that didn't sign the FAFSA, they'll have to get an FSA ID to do the student loan or the parent loan application. Likewise, first-time parent borrowers also have to do a master promissory note at studentloan.gov. Now, here's a pro tip. A lot of times these get muddled. Why? The parent's trying to do the student promissory note with their FSA ID because they clicked the wrong box. Or you have the parent trying to do the Parent Plus loan promissory note at the right checkbox at studentaid.gov, but they're trying to use your FSA ID, which doesn't make sense. I don't know why this happens. It just does. So student uses their own FSA ID to complete their entrance counseling and promissory note. And the parent who's applying for the Parent Plus loan will use their personal FSA ID to sign their promissory note. I just wanted to throw that out there because over the last 5 or 7 years, that's becoming more and more of a thing where the parent or students got those all flip-flops or mismatched. But here, I usually do financial aid presentations for your University 102 classes in the fall, and I don't know how that's going to shake out this year. So normally, across the entire case spectrum, I would be visiting and doing budgeting, money management, or student employment more than just a paycheck, or something like FAFSA reminders. And this is where you normally get this, but let me just tell you now, in case I don't see you later on. Whenever you go to studentaid.gov, FAFSA.gov, csac.dream.ca.u, or whichever their link is, and when you're responding, interacting with the school, financial aid office, or any entities, there's 2 very important acronyms you want to learn and employ. And this is going to help you not only with the financial aid process, navigating your student life at Sonoma State. It's going to help you deal with insurance companies, court stuff, anything that comes your way later on in life, stuff at work. And these are the 2 acronyms. One is RATS, read all the screen. RATS, read all the screen. So we had a COVID-19 application for students for 1920, and a bunch of students didn't get that application filled out correctly and didn't get that additional free money because they did not employ RATS. They did not read all that screen. Now, I can guarantee you when they called in to complain, they're like, RATS, I didn't read all the screen. That's right, because you didn't answer the questions. Now, I'm going to give you a little side bullet point here. I find a lot of times people turn in stuff but don't answer the questions, whether it's an online application or a paper application. Look, you got to read through the entire form, piece of paper, or read all the screen and make sure you're doing the right things, right? Because sometimes there's no do-overs. So RATS, the first acronym is RATS, read all the screen. And then when you start interacting not only with people and entities, the financial aid, maybe the federal government, state government, you want to employ RATE. What is RATE? RATE's read all the email, right? So now that you've matriculated, that fancy word to be able to register, you're going to start getting emails to your SSU email address where you want to employ RATE, read all the email. And then as you're renewing your FAFSA, doing the general SSU scholarship application, applying for loans, doing your entrance counseling or promissory note, or going out to look for more scholarships or jobs, you want to employ RATS, read all the screen, right? So RATS and RATE will help you get through a lot of things in life. And sometimes things don't have to be in a hurry. If you don't have time to do it, you can schedule time later when you have more time to sit down and read all the mumbo jumbo on the screen. Do that. And if you have questions about somebody or something, contact us. You're like, hey, I didn't submit it. I just want to make sure. Again, no dumb questions. This is your life, and the decisions you make now, today, and tomorrow going forward could affect you the rest of your life, right? So we already talked about subsidized, unsubsidized loans. No payments required in school. Grace period 6 months. So you don't enter repayment for those loans until 6 months after you graduate, fall below half-time enrollment, or leave school. The origination fee is 1.059% deducted from each disbursement. So what does that mean? Right? What's that mean? If you borrow $1,000, right, and there's a loan origination fee, your disbursement's going to be $9.90. So just think of it that way. For every $1,000 you borrow, the federal government keeps $10. That's that loan origination fee. And they take it right off the loan. So you don't even see it. So let's say you applied for that $2,000 unsubsidized loan, 1,000 for fall, 1,000 for spring. You're going to get net $9.90 each semester after that origination fee. So just to keep it simple and easy, just think about this. The feds take $10 of your student loan for every $1,000 that you borrow. Now, we already talked about this. You got to reapply every year for financial aid, and then there's a fixed interest rate for every year. So your subsidized and unsubsidized loans are going to be fixed at 2.75% for next year. And you probably heard me say the last bullet point earlier. If you decline your loans, it can always be requested or reinstated during the academic year. Let's say you did a budget. Everything was great. You got like $310 left and some change out of your financial aid after fall dispersed. You're groovy. You threw that 310 into savings. Everything's fine. Then spring starts. Financial aid disperses, everything pays. You don't get a refund because you had an enrollment reservation deposit and a housing deposit, and you owe like 40 some odd dollars. No big deal. You had a part-time job, you pay the 40 bucks, you got all your books, you're good to go. But let's say April 2021 rolls around. You're driving your car to your job, your muffler flies out from under your car, you suddenly need a $1,500 car repair, and you just don't have that, right? You only got $311 and some change in your savings account. Well, you declined your loans, but you can turn in the direct loan change form and ask for some or all of that subsidized loan money back. Now, I caution you on that last bullet point. Sometimes students wait too late into the year. We can't disperse a brand new loan after the end of spring 2021 ends. So you don't want to ask for your loans back or take out a loan any later than 2 weeks before finals in the spring term, because you might have to do entrance counseling and promissory note, and these aren't instantaneous. You know, it might take the feds 3 to 5 business days to send us your entrance counseling and your promissory note, right? And if you did all this the day before the last day, too bad, so sad, we might get it afterwards. So all Carson's really saying here is if you decline your loans or reduce your loans and you want to turn in the direct loan change form and ask for some or all of it back, please feel free to do so, but try to do it 2 weeks before finals in the spring term, because there is a drop dead date. And I'll show you a little bit more in a minute, maybe, if we get time. Parent Plus loans, ooh, always unsubsidized. Here's something they don't tell you about when you take out a Parent Plus loan, when the parents go through all that stuff. And I just know this. You can actually, with the loan servicer that they get assigned, they can ask for an in-school deferment with their loan servicer. And if you remain in school on a half-time basis or greater, they'll defer the Parent Plus loan to when, until 6 months after you graduate, fall below half-time or lose school, basically. So the parents can request that. They may request a deferment while student is in school, but they're going to do that with the servicer directly. Now, the origination fee is 4.236 for next year. It's higher for parents. And you'll notice their interest rate's higher for 2021. It's 5.3%. Now, a lot of times parents overborrow. They don't do a budget. They don't know what they need. They're busy. They don't have time. They just ask for it all, right? They just ask for it all, and they get this big old $4,000 check, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't want that much money. Well, let's say your parent gets a $4,000 check. They can return it within 30 days to the Seawell Service Center, and we just send it right back, and there's no interest. If it's after 30 days, they're just going to pay their servicer back directly. It's not a big deal. Now, sometimes you might have special circumstances. Like I was saying, what if everything's fine for fall 2020 and everything was fine for spring 2021, right? Then in April 2021, your parent lost their job, or maybe they got reduced hours, or maybe child support ended for another sibling, right? That happens sometimes because in spring your sibling turned 18, or maybe your parent gets divorced in April. Ooh, I hope that doesn't happen, but things happen. If you run into any of these things, contact the financial aid office. We'll see if it affects your aid, if it can increase it or not. We won't know unless you say something, right? A lot of things can blow your direction that you don't have plans for. And I could tell you this right now, you got to be flexible. And if you're a bad speller and you spell check, it could be flexible, right? Like flaxseed. But you need to be flexible is what I really want you to understand is you can have the best plans and you can budget. Sometimes life throws you a curveball. Car accident, parents get divorced, you broke your leg skiing, skydiving, bungee jumping, body surfing, I don't know. Sometimes life's going to throw you a few curveballs, but here's the thing. Stay positive, keep moving forward, keep chipping it away at it, and eventually you'll see the light at the end of the tunnel and getting your degree, usually about your junior year. Just remember, jump left or right out of the way of the light at the end of the tunnel so you don't get hit by the train and graduate. Run out into the light and get a job or pursue your career or whatever your professional endeavor will be. But again, life's going to throw you curveballs, so you might have special circumstances. We could possibly take those into consideration, but we're not going to know unless you contact the financial aid office and let us know what's going on, right? So don't be shy. Something happens. Hey, if we can't make an adjustment, we'll tell you we can't make an adjustment. If we can, we'll say, okay, good. I'll go grab this appeal and turn it in, right? But we'll never know until you self-identify. So keep that in mind. Should something come your way during your academic career at Sonoma State, and it's a special circumstance and it may affect your financial aid in terms of giving you more, contact us. We'd like to know about it. Now, how do you keep your financial aid? Well, I've already been banging on that drum that you got to reapply every year, right? Well, there you go. Got to reapply every year before March 2nd. But here's the kicker. You got to pass your classes. If you get academically disqualified, we have to cancel your aid, right? Let's say you're not academically disqualified. You're just on probation. Then you become lack of progress. You have to pass your classes each semester if you want to keep your financial aid. And there is a hierarchy. You have to meet satisfactory academic progress. And if you don't, we can't pay you, right? It's being a financial aid administrator, we're charged with a dual role. Our first role is to break down the financial barriers to getting an education. Our second role is to protect the public tax dollars. All this financial aid money comes from tax dollars, from tax money that people paid in taxes, right? Taxpayers aren't happy. They don't like funding people who don't pass their classes. It's just the nature of the beast, right? So if you're not passing your classes, we got to cut you off. And you can appeal. And there's a hierarchy and a process, but just do the best you can. And it's all right if you have a bad semester or two. That's what we're here for. We'll help walk you through it. But again, you have to pass your classes if you want to keep your financial aid, aside from reapplying every year. Now, we had already discussed this, and this is a good reminder. SSU communications, now that you've matriculated, will go to your SSU email address, including any parent communications regarding the PLUS loan. If you don't share those parent PLUS loan communications with your parent, they're not going to be very happy when they call to find out, I can't speak. When they call us to find out what's going on, and then we tell them there's an email we sent you that they didn't give to them, well, you're going to hear about it sooner than later, right? So make sure any parent PLUS loan emails you share with your parent from your SSU email address. Students must regularly check their SSU email and your to-do list in My SSU. Students can set up a guest username for parent and third party to see their financial account. That will be on the Seawolf Services website. And then remember how I was telling you, you're responsible for updating your mailing address, not the school, not anybody else. So if you didn't get your financial aid check because you didn't update your mailing address, well, you're going to have to go through the check reissue process. That's on you. But what does Carson like to tell students to do? Sign up for a direct deposit. Wouldn't it be great to get your money a week earlier, and then you don't have that stress hanging over you about there's a check in the mail, and you're anxiously calling your parents going, I had him send it to the wrong address. Could you keep checking the mail? And then your parents are like, she's calling me every day. And I know, just sign up for direct deposit. It's not a big thing, right? But if you're going to get a paper check, always make sure you keep your addresses up to date. By the way, financial aid refund checks will always go to your mailing address if you don't have direct deposit set up. All right, you have questions. What are you going to do? You panicked, right? Phase one's over. Phase two, well, I got to contact somebody, right? Well, go to the source. You don't want to talk to Sally's cousin's friend from around the way about financial aid because his financial aid might be totally different than yours. So if you have questions about financial aid, I recommend you go to the financial aid office. There's a lot of well-meaning advisors in other areas on campus, but they tend to give out a lot of bad financial aid advice because they don't know all the nuances. And as some of you have probably already heard me say in pre-college, the world of financial aid is a really big onion, and sometimes the more layers you peel back, the more you want to cry. But that's what we're here for in the financial aid office, right? To answer those questions. So go to the source. If you have financial aid questions, comments, concerns, email us. We have a website. Now, I'm going to caution you on the website. It's going to change in the next couple of weeks. But if you go to the main SSU webpage, you'll always be able to find us. It's not a big deal. Now, and then there's My SSU, that's your SSU online services, your to-do list where you register for classes, where you accept the subsidized loan, unsubsidized loan, apply for, or all these different things, right? So, but the key thing is, if you have questions, go to the source and ask those questions, because there are no dumb questions. It's your life. We want to get you out the door on the good foot. Now, I always have beef with this slide. It's not congratulations and good luck. It's congratulations. Why? There's no luck to it. You're all here today, right? And you know to ask questions, which is the key thing. You're going to employ rats, read all the screen. You're going to employ rate, read all the email. You know you've got to-do lists coming up if you're going to take out loans. You're going to work on a budget, right? You got to get a budget, got to reapply for financial aid every year. You got to look for scholarships. There's no luck to it. I say congratulations because you guys are all going to go out and just do what you need to do. And if you ever get stuck and need help, you're going to contact the financial aid office, right? So there's no luck to it. You've got all the skills. You know what to do. We've got a couple of minutes. I'm going to give you a quick orientation on some things. Yep, that was you guys. Okay. So what we'll do. No burning fires. So hopefully you can all see my screen. There's a financial aid office website. It's going to change in the next few weeks, but don't sweat it. It'll be there. Location and hours. Here's that drop-in advising by Zoom, right? You contact us if we have questions. Got that. And if your parents want to do Spanish, come on down. We'll get you done in Spanish if we need to. Entrance counseling promissory note. Doesn't matter which one you get or your parent, you're going to go to studentaid.gov. It's all going to be handled same place you did the FAFSA, right? Deadlines are important. I do want to point out with the general scholarship application at Sonoma State, a lot of students miss this. I've been answering the question ad nauseum this summer. Well, can I apply for a university scholarship? Yeah, if it's between February, before February 1st, 2020. Why is Carson showing this? You need to plan for things. Do you want to be reactive and miss out on a lot of things and always be scrambling and stressed out? Or do you want to be proactive? Being proactive is occasionally doing your homework and finding out what the deadlines are, and of doing your general SSE scholarship application before February 1st, 2020, and not asking in June 2020 if there's an application to apply for, right? That person was reactive. You want to be proactive, and you'll be proactive by reapplying for financial aid every year, passing your classes to ensure you can keep your funding, and you're going to look for scholarships, and hopefully you're going to look for work, and you're going to ask questions from the source, right? And you're going to be on top of these things ahead of time, proactive, rather than reactive. It's now October 2020. I don't have enough to pay for school. The general SSU application deadline's passed, and it's going to be 1 month before I get my first paycheck. There's a lot of students like that, and that's why the dropout rate's so high for freshmen and sophomore. They're not getting the life skills under their belt, budgeting and money management, time management, just basic life skills, so to speak. But so remember, you got to reapply for financial aid every year. There's an early applicant deadline. Don't miss the scholarship deadline. This is this year's. Next year's are going to be all the same. Then let's go to additional websites. I strongly encourage you to look for scholarships year-round. Free money you don't have to pay back, right? Start at your school scholarship office website. That's the safest place. There's other links and resources for you to look at here. Strongly encourage you to do work study if you have that. You can find some of the work study jobs here under Handshake. I know Koo already gave you the glossary of terms. Good job, Koo. She really wants to make sure you can use the right parlance to get what you need out of FAO. I really appreciate that, but here it is if you need it. Costs of attendance, generic information, disbursement calendar. And you're going to notice if all your ducks are in a row and you took care of everything, financial aid is going to disperse there. And then we have a disbursement throughout the semester. And then there's a drop dead date. Now remember, if you decline your loans or cancel your loans and you want them back, there's going to be a drop dead date for spring. And if you don't get those loans done by the last disbursement in spring, it'll be in May, probably around May 12th, then we just can't give you the loan. So not a big deal otherwise. So I covered a lot of material, and I only hit the tip of the iceberg, by the way. There's so much below it. And below that iceberg is budgeting and money management and going over your financial aid award offer with your case advisor. And I strongly encourage you to do that, and you'll have a better handle. If you need to make $400 before school starts, now's the time to know, not in October 2020 when you already passed due on that money, right? So, but if you have questions, reach out. There are no dumb questions. We're here for you. We got some stuff going on. Your parent wants to talk to us in Spanish, please do. We're here for them too. Then I'll send it back to Ku to see if you have any questions that you want me to throw in here right at the last minute. I got through all the web screens I wanted to show you. We talked about budgeting and money management. We gave the financial aid basics. Talked about to-dos, and we did reminders. I think that's pretty much everything. Anything you want me to add, Ku?
Yeah, thank you so much, Carson, for all that information, not just about financial aid, but tips and life tips there too. There were some questions in the chat earlier, and I got kicked off earlier from the meeting, so I lost the questions in there, but there were some questions about work study, and so for students who, since we're in this remote setting, will we still be offering work study? What does that look like for fall semester? And if a student does not have federal work study on their award, does that mean they're not eligible? And then you talked about being in good academic standing with financial aid. Can you talk about what those requirements are? How many units do students need to pass in order to be in good financial aid standing?
Yeah, let me hit that first because we're right here on the website.
Sure.
You got to pass your classes. Now, when you got your award offer communication, though, in that award offer email that was sent to you, it said you're responsible as the student for looking at all the details in the help book. What is the last chapter of the help book? Satisfactory academic progress. Here are the standards. This will answer the question that Ku just asked. Here are the terms and conditions and general requirements that you need to know whether you're an undergraduate or a post-baccalaureate student. So here's where you're going to find those details. But you know how I just clicked on that PDF? All those details are right here on the screen if you just want to read it HTML2. If you have questions about this, let me know. These tables will tell you exactly what your pass and not completing ratios and stuff are right here. Right? But rather than think about that, put the energy into trying to pass your classes. And that means getting tutoring and asking for help early and not when you're already overwhelmed. But don't sweat it. If you get a SAP communication, it's going to direct you back to this web page and site, and you can figure out what's a pass, no credit, what probation and warning means, how many classes and what the breakdown is and where you're at. So, you know, we've got all these details. So go to the source. But if you come here and you're stuck, don't sweat it. Definitely try to get in with the drop-in advisor through Zoom. But let's go back to work study because that's always a hot topic. And let's just go down to types aid. So there's a work study page. Who's eligible, finding a job, reducing work study, what to do once you're hired. I'm going to give you the biggest tip of all. You can have a work study job on campus and you could be working right next to a student who has a regular non-work study job, and you both earn the same amount of money doing the exact same job. In fact, most campus jobs aren't work study. So here's the key thing. If you go to get a campus job, and you have work study, make sure they hire you as work study and not as a regular hourly student assistant, or your award will get canceled, right? Because that happens a lot of times. The employer might accidentally hire you as an hourly student assistant instead of a work study student assistant when you have that award. Just make sure they hire you as the right kind of student assistant. Now, here's the deal. We have no idea how fall is going to work other than we just don't know. So we don't know if they're going to hire anybody on campus. But typically you work on campus at a job. We're not going to have any off-campus or remote work study jobs. So more than likely, if you're on campus or in and around campus, that's where you'll get a job. And it might be limited due to the pandemic. However, most campus jobs aren't work study, they're regular hourly student assistant jobs. So that's going to be impacted as well. So you're going to find that there's going to be probably a lot less demand for student assistants for fall semester, because we don't have the student body on campus to hire that. We don't have the need, right? A lot of student assistant jobs deal with working with customer service type stuff on campus. But if the customers aren't on campus, then those jobs aren't going to be available, if that makes any sense. So we don't know what the future is going to hold. That's part of the anxiety that people have. But still, I encourage you to look for a work study job, right? Even if it's only 5 hours a week, because then you can keep getting it every year when you're awarded financial aid, and then just have another job. There's nothing wrong with that. But here are the start and stop dates. And it has to align with the semester. So this is really important to know. So that's going to be, if you were hired for work study in fall, you can work between that date range for the start dates for fall and spring. And there's your end date range right there. And then you get paid once a month. And by the way, I have this link down here. It's always on the 15th, but if you really wanted to see the calendar, you just follow that link down there, and it'll give you the pay dates and calendars. And you just find the one for students, and it's the 15th of every month. But it's for hours that you actually worked. If you didn't work, then you're not going to earn anything, right? But I do want to give you a heads up. This is where a lot of students fall down. Per the IRS, all income's taxable, including work study. So if you elect to take out no tax in your work study job, and then have no exclusions or exemptions, then you might have to pay tax at the end of the year. So just a reminder, federal work study is taxable income. So you might want to have them take out some withholding from your paycheck. If you don't have to file a return, it's no big deal. But if you're going to have to file a future return and you didn't take out withholding from your work study job, then you might have to pay some taxes to the IRS. That's a common myth or urban legend that I could get paid to study. Now you have to find a job. Oh, work study is untaxable. No, that's not true either. All income's taxable per the IRS. So did you have more work study questions, Koo? Those are all really good ones.
I think you captured the gist of it. And Carson, I'll just add to let our students know, we, Summer Bridge, are working with the Career Center. From what has been shared with us, they are planning on working on a part-time job fair that may be for on-campus and off-campus employers. And so once we get that information, we will definitely share that out with our students.
Oh, let me know too, because remember, I get parents and students contacting me left, right, up, down. Sometimes they descend from the ceiling tiles on rappelling ropes. They come in from all angles, right? That was my big concern about the pandemic. I thought was it last year or the year before when we had the part-time on-campus job fair? I thought that was such a wonderful success for a lot of students. And I hope that can go on during Bridge, or we can have that this year. So thank you so much, Koo, for working with Career Services. I can't even tell you how much positive feedback I heard from parents and students after the last part-time job hiring fair.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so
I think.
You think that's really going to happen again?
It's going to be probably at a smaller scale. Again, we're working with the Career Center. So once we know more information, once they have more information, we will definitely let our students know, and I'll definitely include you as well, Carson.
Cool, because we're going to move our website from this format to Drupal, along with the rest of campus, right? And maybe I could put that in announcements or something. If it's
yes.
If the timing's right, maybe I could put that on our page too, because I really do believe this. All the information I gave you guys, all the little pro tips and things like RATs, rate, being proactive versus reactive. I've got 20 years of doing this, of working with students, especially low-income first-generation college students. And what I'm telling you is from a body of not only experience that I have, but validated research that's out there. If you work part-time and you find the optimal balance in your life schedule, you'll develop good time management skills, and the likelihood that you complete college shoots way up. So just wanted to throw that out there. I think it's a good thing to do, to have a part-time job.
And Carson, we have two last questions.
Sure. Excuse me. I'll go as long as you guys need to. My whole day was just that. Seriously, I cleared the deck. I mean, this morning I was like, what other stuff could I give them? And then I had all these screens I showed you, but I've got the internet up. We can go anywhere, answer anything you want.
Yeah. So we have two more questions, and then I would just say if students have more questions, they can definitely follow up with Carson. Also did put in the I did put in the chat earlier that tomorrow from 1 to 5 we will have two financial aid representatives who will be on drop-ins, particularly just for our Summer Bridge students. And so you can find that in your Summer Bridge Canvas course for tomorrow.
Oh,
so,
yes. Good.
Yeah. So Carson, how do we know if we are in work study or not? Who do we call or where can we find it? And then the last question is, so no work until the spring when things are in person, question mark.
Well, we don't know because they haven't decided, but those dates I gave you, these are always the work study dates. They have to be within the semester of enrollment per the federal government. But again, you'll know if you have work study if it's on your award offer. If you go into your award offer and you don't see work study, then you don't have work study. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have work study because we award out more work study than the feds give us because most people don't go look for a job, which is sad. So we over award people more than the funds that we have, but still so many people don't take the job that we have to use that allocation or they're going to give us less in the future. So what'll happen, usually 2 weeks into the fall semester, sometimes a month, if people don't go out and use their work study award, we're going to cancel it. And then we're going to give it to somebody who doesn't have a work study award. Let's say we had twins. Sally Sonoma had work study and Johnny Sonoma didn't have work study. Sally Sonoma didn't get a job and it was canceled, but Johnny Sonoma went out and got a job in the rec center. So then we awarded him work study. So you just got to check with us 2 weeks to a month into the semester. By the way, Carmen's the federal work study coordinator. So here's a side note if you look at the screen. If your last name's A through DT, I might have be working on your file. There's their last name there. There's Evan. And Carmen's the work study coordinator. She'll usually say, Carmen typically says, have the employer contact me. So if you don't have a work study award, I wouldn't sweat it. Like I said, most jobs aren't work study. They're regular hourly student assistant. So that's why I think that part-time job fair is so important. But if you get work study, try to use it. And then it's between you and the employer to make sure you get hired, right? So if you have a work study on your award and you go to the part-time job fair and somebody gives you a job, just tell your employer, I want to use my work study award. And if they're not sure how to hire you as work study, have them contact HR. Not a big deal, because there are employers out there, by the way, who might not have ever hired a work study student before. We have that all the time. People retire, people change jobs. So if your employer's not sure how to hire you as work study, or if you can have them contact HR, if your employer wants to make sure you can definitely have work study, have them email Carmen. And she'll look and see if she can award it to you. But just because you have a work study award doesn't guarantee a job. And just because you don't have work study doesn't mean you can't have it. Does that kind of make sense? It's a flexible, kind of fluid situation.
Awesome. Well, Carson, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and sharing with us our Financial Aid Workshop 101. And so, folks, let's give Carson a round of applause, clap, or a thumbs up. Thank you in the chat.
Can you hear me talking too?
Thank you so much, Carson.
Can I leave you guys with one last tip? I'll leave you guys with one last thing. There are no dumb questions. Remember, if you need to know, and you need to contact us and ask those questions, because that's what we're here for. We don't want you to be crying over the onion, right? So if you get stuck or need help or you're really unsure about something, speak up, email, call, rappel from ropes from the ceiling tiles if you want to, however you choose to get a hold of us. Just remember, don't forget to ask if you have questions or if you're unsure about something. We want to make sure you get out the gate on the good foot. And even if you're a sophomore, junior, senior, and you're still unsure about something, better to know. No dumb questions. You reach out to us. And then if we don't know the answer, we'll certainly find you the answer. Yep.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Look forward to hearing from you and possibly seeing you guys someday.
Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. And again, we will go ahead and post this up to our Summer Bridge Canvas course. Have a good afternoon.
You have a great afternoon, Koo, and thank you again for putting this on, and thank you for trying to get the part-time job fair going.
Thank you, Carson.
Oh, you're welcome. You guys have a good one.